Hey everybody, David the AI Guide here. Welcome to another episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well. Also, this week we're going to start firing up shorts, which are short videos, a minute or so, on breaking news because there's so much now, we can't keep up with it in these longer segments. But thank you again so much for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about urban air mobility, and we've talked about this several times, but there is a lot that has gone on and it's reaching critical mass. So what is urban air mobility? What it is local air taxis going point to point in urban areas. So in the big cities, building to building, or in spread out cities like Los Angeles, for example, let's say from downtown to Orange County, super fast. That's what urban air mobility is. And a number of companies, all startups basically, have been working on this technology starting about 5 years ago, so around 2016. So this is relatively new ideas and relative and brand new implementation. So one of the companies we've talked about before building a UAM vehicle, urban air mobility vehicle, is Lilium, and they are out of Germany, and they have, I mentioned before, that they have already proposed and are constructing terminals to do a run from Orlando to Tampa, St. Pete that normally might take an hour and a half in a car, and we're down to 20 minutes in a UAM, or the exact time isn't known yet, but it's going to be orders of magnitude faster. So this is very interesting, but a lot has happened since I did that update 6 months ago. Lilium is now proposing a network of 14 of these UAM ports in cities, different cities in Florida. So basically they're going to blanket the whole state and allow you to go city to city very, very quickly in Florida. And they're looking at a similar network in Germany. So this stuff is real. Why do I say it? Well, because these are aircraft and they will be passenger aircraft. And that means that governments have to get involved and create, test, and issue regulations for these. What kind of regulations? Well, the airworthiness of the aircraft and the engines that drive it, which historically has been done separately. Then there's pilot training, and then finally there's infrastructure, acceptable terminals, landing area, flight control, stuff like that. So there's a lot of regulatory work that has to be done. Well, guess what? A lot of it's already done. There are two parallel paths of regulation going on. One with the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration here in the United States, and another in Europe, EASA, which does the European Union regulations in parallel with the FAA that does them here in the United States. And of course, the goal in the end is to harmonize all of these regulations. At the moment, there's some differences between what's happening in the US and in Europe, but the Europeans are ahead, like they are a lot of times on regulation. We've talked about that before. And the FAA is working with the Europeans and working to catch up. And the reason why is because this is going to be in service for private people to use in 2024. We're talking 3 years from now. How do we know that? And that this isn't an overly optimistic estimate? Well, because the Europeans, as of this month, June 2021, will be finished with 2 of the 3 steps required for aircraft certification. So this is a slam dunk in terms of the timeline. The FAA is on a similar schedule with that, and in parallel, they're working on the pilot training aspects and the infrastructure aspect certification. So regulation is moving much faster than it ever has before for two reasons. One is that they're learning how to work with startups, and startups iterate very, very quickly on technology. That's the beauty of a startup. It isn't set in its ways and big with a lot of corporate administration and conservatism. Startups iterate new solutions very, very quickly. So Lilium is already testing its aircraft. It's already in certification process, and others are right behind it. So in working with these startups, the regulators have learned to take a holistic approach. So with these EVTOL, which is electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. So these vehicles will not be fuel powered. They will be electric and they will be rechargeable. So this is a whole new area of regulation on the engine side. And because they're dealing with startups, both regulators have decided to fully integrate it into a vehicle and performance-based regulatory setup. So this has dramatically shortened the regulatory time frame. What does all that mean? Well, it means, again, that these vehicles are going to be flying by 2024 with passengers all the way through the certification process, airspace considerations, all that stuff. This is moving extremely fast, and it's going to have rapid adoption. And now, where does AI come into this? So AI comes in because phase one, which is already in the regulatory process, is AI assistance to the human pilot. So the pilot is still fully in charge, and AI is assisting with navigational aids and flight path and stuff like that. Collision avoidance would be another big one. So this level of AI, and there's going to be 3 levels with these EVTOLs, is already in the regulatory process both in the US and in Europe, and will be implemented along with first flights. So that's level 1. Level 2 is what they call human AI collaboration. So in this scenario, the pilot and the AI will have about equal parts responsibility for flying these aircrafts. This is step 2, and this is projected for 2027, 2028. Why the rapid evolution? Because like all AI, a lot of data is going to be aggregated starting in 2024. So by 2027, a lot of data will be available to take the machine learning algorithms to the next level. That brings up a really important point that we talked about in a couple of videos ago. So initially, it's going to be supervised machine learning, not neural net. And the reason why is because, as we talked about, supervised machine learning has a human involved the whole time, and the data set is labeled. So what the algorithm is doing is very clear and transparent. Neural nets, keep in mind, people do not understand how they fully work. So when you're talking about aircraft with people in them, it's going to take longer to build the protocols and insight needed from a regulatory perspective for that to be used. So, but 2027, this should be happening. And then by 2030, level 3, which is split into two parts. Part A is there's a human sitting in the aircraft, but the AI is completely flying the vehicle. And 3B is no pilot, full autonomy. So they're saying we'll get to 3A about 2030, which means AI will be flying these aircraft. And then shortly after that, you'll see pilots disappear from these vehicles. This is in direct parallel to what's happening on the surface with trucks and cars. It's all working at the same speed in terms of development of AI, development and certification of vehicles, and development of regulation. This is all in parallel. So by 2030, the world is going to be profoundly different. This is what I keep telling you, to be prepared for these dramatic changes in the world. And the final thing I want to mention is, if you take these eVTOLs that will have about 6 passengers initially, 6 to 10, and then so you're shrinking commercial air travel from 100 to 300 or 400 people on a plane down to 6 to 10. This is a paradigm shift. You take that along with Starship, which will by 2030 be able and licensed to fly people great distances on Earth, point to point in short periods of time. Say, as Elon Musk said in 2017 back at the IAC, International Aeronautical Conference, Sydney to New York in 42 minutes. This is world changing. So again, this is a smaller group. This will be about 100 people on a Starship making that journey. And so what we're going to see is a fragmentation of human transport into smaller units by many more companies, and it will allow air travel to places that currently could never have it. Small towns and cities that could never support a regular commercial airport will now have air travel. Game-changing, ultimately driven by AI. When we get to level 3 autonomy, the cost of this air travel will be low and affordable to the average person, driven by AI once again. So thanks. Hope you find this interesting. We're going to stay on top of this topic because the change is going to be very, very rapid the next 3 years. And you will see all of these vehicles in the air starting in 2024. Plus, the regulatory process has already been completed in Europe and the US for drones. You're going to see drones in the air delivering your packages any day now, very soon. So the world is changing super fast. Be ready. Click the link below, get your free resource, learn more about AI. The next free resource we're going to give you is going to give you an alternate career path, and that'll be coming very shortly. Thanks for tuning in. Take care, and we'll see you next time.